The United States government places a hard limit on the release of OpenAI's GPT-5.6 to conduct customer-by-customer security vetting. OpenAI unveils its first custom-designed silicon chip built alongside Broadcom to escape its reliance on NVIDIA, and Apple executes an unprecedented mid-cycle price hike as the AI hardware boom drains the global supply of memory chips. Welcome to today's Daily Rundown. I'm your host, Anna. This podcast is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer from University Laval, based in Calgary, Alberta. Today, we perform a forensic autopsy on the sovereign handbrake and the vertical integration of compute this Friday, June 26th, 2026. The era of the self-regulated artificial intelligence launch is officially dead. The Trump administration has instructed OpenAI to halt the public release of its highly anticipated GPT-5.6 model. Citing security concerns regarding its Mythos-level capabilities, the government will now personally vet and approve early access on a customer-by-customer basis. This intervention solidifies a chilling new precedent. Washington, not Silicon Valley, is now the final gatekeeper for the deployment of frontier technology. While the software rollout is frozen by the state, the infrastructure race is aggressively moving in-house. OpenAI has just unveiled Jalapeño, its first custom application-specific integrated circuit, or ASIC, co-developed with Broadcom in just 9 months. Designed specifically for highly efficient model inference, this custom silicon layer aims to drastically lower OpenAI's operational costs and reduce its total dependence on NVIDIA hardware. Before we dive into the telemetry, I have a brief strategic request. The algorithms governing your podcast platform dictate what intelligence reaches your network. To ensure you never miss our daily forensic autopsies, please hit follow or subscribe to the Jamgamine channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. It takes just 1 second, but it directly enables independent, unfiltered tech journalism. Let's unpack the data.
For the last decade or so, the tech sector has really just sold us this concept of the cloud.
Right, the cloud.
Yeah, and they marketed it perfectly, right? Like it sounded so ethereal and weightless, just infinitely scalable, a place where your data just floated in the abstract. But looking at the reality of today, June 26th, 2026, that illusion is completely shattered.
Oh, Ted Hurley.
You look at the landscape today, and the abstract cloud is dead. It's been replaced by this brutal physical reality of hyper-optimized industrial silos that are just, groaning under the weight of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, the physical infrastructure of the planet is currently being bent entirely around the gravitational pull of compute.
Yeah.
We are looking at a market where the abstract software layer is hitting a massive geopolitical wall. And the reaction from the major players is essentially to devour the physical world.
Which is wild to watch.
It is. They are consuming advanced silicon supply chains. They are restructuring national electrical grids. And they're doing it with an unprecedented level of vertical integration.
And that is exactly the mission for today's deep dive. We are taking on the roles of forensic venture strategists and sovereign risk analysts to do a really holistic autopsy on this specific moment in the tech ecosystem.
Right.
So for you listening, we've compiled a stack of daily news rundowns, leaked internal memos, corporate hardware announcements, just everything we need to understand what we're calling the sovereign handbrake and the vertical integration.
Because we are witnessing the absolute collapse of the self-regulated AI launch.
Exactly.
The era where a private corporation could just, train a frontier model in secret, push a button, and deploy it to 1 billion users overnight, that's been forcibly closed.
Yeah, slam shut.
The U.S. government has stepped in. And the interventions we're seeing in today's source material, they signal a permanent shift. Compute at the frontier level is now being treated with the exact same regulatory severity as enriched uranium.
Okay, let's unpack this first major piece of intelligence, which is the sovereign handbrake on OpenAI's GPT 5.6. According to the internal memos we've sourced, the Trump administration has officially mandated that the release of 5.6 be strictly limited to a select, vetted group of government-approved partners.
Right. It's not a general rollout.
Not at all. They aren't just delaying it. The White House is literally approving access customer by customer.
Which is a staggering level of intervention. And the trigger for this is a specific capability benchmark known in the intelligence community as the Mythos threshold.
Right, and we should clarify, this isn't about the AI, like, writing better poetry or...
No, or
Right.
generating high-resolution images, no.
Yeah.
The Mythos threshold defines a level of multi-step autonomous reasoning.
Okay.
It's where a model can independently plan, execute, and adapt complex offensive cyber capabilities or manipulate macroeconomic data systems without human prompting. Right. So when a system crosses that line, the administration no longer views it as a commercial software product. It's officially classified as a matter of national security, which gives them the statutory authority to just seize the release schedule.
What really fascinates me here is the corporate communication strategy surrounding all of this. Because we have this leaked memo from Sam Altman to his employees, and he is spinning this so hard.
Oh, absolutely.
He's calling it the best path forward. He's telling his team they still hope for a general release just a, quote, couple of weeks later,
Right.
framing this massive federal bottleneck as some sort of cooperative partnership. But, I mean, let's look at the mechanics here. Is Altman's memo just a polite way of saying they got completely forced into a corner?
I mean, yes, the framing is a classic mitigation strategy. By labeling this a security partnership, OpenAI is attempting to retain an aura of control.
Yeah, exactly.
But the clinical reality is that the White House has just established itself as the final, immutable gatekeeper for all future technology scaling. A couple weeks later is just corporate optimism.
Yeah, that seems highly unlikely.
The precedent is what matters. Once a regulatory body inserts itself into the deployment pipeline on a customer-by-customer basis, that bureaucratic friction is permanent. Their go-to-market velocity has been structurally compromised.
It's like the FAA grounding a brand new aircraft design, right?
Okay.
But instead of just inspecting the plane's engineering, they are demanding to personally interview every single passenger before they can board.
Right.
It just destroys all the momentum. But if you're a tech giant and the federal government is slamming the brakes on your software, you don't just sit there.
No, you pivot. You compensate by taking extreme ownership of the physical hardware layer. You build a sovereign-level moat that the software regulators can't easily touch.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because that leads directly to the reveal of Jalapeño.
Yes.
According to the hardware announcements today, Jalapeño is OpenAI's first custom ASIC chip, which they co-developed with Broadcom in an astonishing 9 months.
Which is just unheard of. 9 months from architecture to silicon and semiconductor fabrication is basically impossible.
Right, but the sources reveal how they did it, and it's this wild Ouroboros situation. OpenAI actually deployed its own internal unreleased models to design and optimize the physical layout of the chip.
And that completely bypasses the traditional semiconductor design cycle. Because normally you have armies of human engineers spending years mapping out the spatial optimization of billions of logic gates.
Yeah.
They have to balance thermal dynamics, power delivery networks, data routing pathways. It's incredibly tedious. But OpenAI circumvented that timeline by feeding those physical design constraints into their models.
Wow.
Yeah, so the AI was able to iterate through millions of topological configurations overnight. It found microscopic efficiencies in the chip's floor plan that human engineers would simply miss. It's a closed-loop system where the software is architecting the very physical silicon environment it's eventually going to inhabit.
But I want to dig into the strategy here, right? Because Jalapeño is an application-specific integrated circuit and ASIC, and it's built exclusively for inference.
Correct.
Now, for you listening, there are essentially 2 phases of AI. There's training, where you feed the model the data so it learns, and then inference, which is the model actually answering your prompt in real time.
Right.
OpenAI is openly leaving the massive training workloads to standard NVIDIA GPUs, but they want total dominance over the inference layer. So why? Why build a specialized ASIC just for inference instead of, just buying more of the standard GPUs everyone else uses?
Because a general-purpose GPU is essentially a highly sophisticated Swiss Army knife.
Okay.
It's designed to handle a vast array of computational tasks, from rendering video game graphics to training those massive neural networks. But when you are running inference on a finalized model at the scale of ChatGPT, you don't need a Swiss Army knife. You need a highly specialized scalpel.
Ah, I see.
By building Jalapeño, OpenAI physically hard codes the exact mathematical operations required for their specific neural network architecture right into the silicon. They strip away all the unneeded transistors, the extra cores, the general memory controllers that a standard GPU requires.
So they are eliminating the bloat at a microscopic level.
Precisely. And by eliminating that bloat, the performance per watt metric just skyrockets.
Yeah.
Inference requires very specific, low-precision floating point math. When you own the silicon, the proprietary model, and the product interface, you achieve a level of cost efficiency that a company relying on generalized hardware simply cannot match.
It's a cynical but brilliant move.
It really is. It's how they plan to outmaneuver these regulatory software delays with raw hardware dominance. And it's how they plan to power their target of 10 gigawatts of custom compute by 2029.
Okay, let's talk about that 10 gigawatt figure, because that is the pivot point where this stops being a tech story and becomes a macroeconomic infrastructure crisis.
Absolutely.
10 gigawatts is the equivalent power output of roughly 10 large nuclear reactors.
Yeah.
You can't just plug 10 gigawatts of compute into the wall without physically breaking the national electrical grid.
No, the scale of that power draw completely alters the energy landscape. The legacy utility grids, they were designed for predictable distributed loads, so factories running during the day, residential peaks in the evening.
Right.
A 10-gigawatt AI data center creates an immense continuous baseload demand centralized in one geographic location. The physical transmission lines and substations literally cannot handle that current without melting.
And according to the Daily Rundown, the tech industry's fix for this is a massive virtual power plant, or a VPP. We're seeing a coalition of Tesla, Sunrun, and Renew Home teaming up to build a 16-gigawatt VPP. But they aren't pouring concrete or building a new power station, right? They are using software APIs to string together millions of existing residential home batteries, smart thermostats, and electric vehicle systems across the entire country.
And the engineering behind this is a masterclass in load balancing. By networking, say, 5 million individual household batteries, they create this distributed, decentralized power reservoir.
Yeah.
So when a data center experiences a massive spike in inference requests, like during business hours, when millions of enterprise users are querying the model at the same time, the VPP software automatically commands the residential batteries in that region to discharge their stored solar power back into the grid.
Wow.
Which offsets the data center's immense draw and prevents localized brownouts.
But the corporate PR narrative here is that this system improves, quote, grid reliability and lowers household electricity costs.
Right.
But let's connect this directly to you, the listener. If you have a battery pack installed in your basement or an EV in your driveway, its charge and discharge cycles are now literally being dictated by the cooling requirements of a corporate server farm. Your home infrastructure is sweating to act as a shock absorber for their data center.
That's exactly it, because the utility companies cannot endure the decade-long permitting and construction process required to build a traditional nuclear or natural gas plant just to meet this sudden AI demand.
Yeah, they have time.
Right. So the tech giants are bypassing the slow infrastructure layer by co-opting the distributed energy storage that private citizens have already paid to install in their own homes.
It's unbelievable.
It's a necessary triage to prevent grid collapse, sure, but it effectively tethers the global AI arms race directly to the electrical panel in your garage.
Which brings us to the collateral damage of all this vertical integration. Because the immense physical footprint of this AI rollout isn't just draining electricity, it is completely cannibalizing the global component supply chain.
Yes.
And every day consumers are paying the price today. Our sources highlight that Apple just executed an unprecedented mid-cycle price hike across their MacBook and iPad product lines.
And you have to understand, a mid-cycle price adjustment from a hardware manufacturer of Apple scale is a severe market indicator.
Oh, yeah.
They secure component pricing and map out their consumer pricing tiers years in advance. So breaking that cycle and risking the consumer backlash, it indicates that the underlying economics of the semiconductor supply chain have fundamentally fractured.
And the sources pinpoint the direct cause here. It's an absolute surge in memory and storage costs, driven directly by the AI boom. The demand for the memory chips required to feed these data centers is just so high that it's choking off the supply for everyone else. Apple stock took a 5% hit on this news, and they warned that if component costs remain elevated, consumer prices are just going to keep climbing.
Right.
It's like trying to buy lumber to build a shed in your backyard, but a billionaire just bought out every single hardware store in the state to build a mega mansion.
That's a perfect analogy.
You have the blueprints, but the physical materials just aren't there for you.
Right. And to look at it clinically, the specific bottleneck here is advanced packaging, specifically a process known as chip-on-wafer-on-substrate, or CoWoS, which is primarily handled by TSMC in Taiwan. The advanced high-bandwidth memory that's required for AI inference chips, uses the exact same highly specialized nanometer-scale packaging lines as the M-series chips inside a consumer MacBook.
Wait, really? The exact same lines?
The exact same lines. And you cannot simply build a new foundry to increase capacity overnight. These factories require immensely complex lithography machines and years of lead time.
Wow.
So when OpenAI and Microsoft place orders for millions of custom ASICs like Jalapeño, they are monopolizing the finite physical space on those factory floors. The consumer technology sector is effectively being taxed to subsidize the physical expansion of artificial intelligence data centers.
So just to recap where we are, we have the U.S. government freezing the release of frontier software with customer-by-customer vetting. We have AI giants pivoting to design their own custom silicon to dominate the physical layer. They are pulling gigawatts of power out of residential neighborhoods to run these chips, and they're buying up so much manufacturing capacity that basic consumer electronics are getting more expensive. But while they wait for the government to approve models like GPT-5.6, what do these companies do with their software in the meantime? Well, the sources reveal they get deeply, deeply embedded. Anthropic just launched something incredibly strategic called Claude Tag for their enterprise and team plans.
Right. With their newer models frozen by the exact same regulatory mandates affecting OpenAI, Anthropic has had to shift. They've moved from pursuing raw capability to pursuing structural indispensability.
Okay, break that down.
The Claude Tag introduces an autonomous Claude agent directly into a corporate Slack channel. But crucially, it is not a passive chatbot just waiting for a prompt.
Right. The documentation shows it operates via a dedicated agent identity.
Yes.
It lives in the channel as a permanent team member. It operates on its own schedule. It monitors the ongoing conversations, and it executes tasks without ever being explicitly tagged or prompted by a human.
Which is a massive shift in workflow.
It is. It's like hiring a ghost employee who just lives in your company chat and does tasks while you're asleep. But Anthropic claims they've implemented these capped token spending limits to ensure the agents don't generate runaway cloud computing bills for the enterprise.
And from a strategic perspective, this is just a brilliant maneuver by Anthropic to ensure revenue continuity during a regulatory freeze.
Right.
If your flagship product is stalled in Washington, you face immense churn risk from your enterprise clients. But by weaving an autonomous agent into the daily granular workflows of a company's internal communications, you make the technology incredibly difficult to rip out.
Yeah, the friction to leave is huge.
Massive. Once an agent is independently handling project management updates, organizing databases, summarizing daily engineering stand-ups, removing it causes immediate operational paralysis for the human workforce.
But I have to push back on the safety mechanisms they're advertising here. They are relying on a token ceiling to keep the agent in check. Now, for you listening, a token is basically a fragment of a word that the AI processes. And every token costs a microscopic fraction of a cent. So the ceiling stops the AI from spending more than, say, $50 a day on compute. But how does a financial limit act as a behavioral safeguard? If this thing has its own identity and acts autonomously, a token limit doesn't stop it from running wild in a complex corporate workflow.
No, it doesn't at all. A token ceiling is a mechanism designed for the chief financial officer. It is not designed for the chief information security officer.
Exactly.
It strictly controls the financial burn rate of the compute. But from a behavioral standpoint, executing a highly destructive API call like permanently deleting a critical client database or autonomously emailing confidential internal documents to an external vendor, it takes very few tokens.
It's just a handful of words.
Exactly. The financial limit will not prevent the action. It merely means the agent will stop operating after the damage is already done and the $50 budget is exhausted. Anthropic is completely aware of this risk. But they are calculating that the efficiency gains for the enterprise will outweigh the security anxieties.
It is a massive, highly cynical, calculated risk. They are just normalizing non-human entities acting independently inside corporate environment.
Yes.
So when we pull all of these threads together, the narrative arc of June 2026 is incredibly clear. We are witnessing the end of the abstract digital playground.
The playground is closed.
The government's sovereign handbrake on frontier models has forced the industry to realize that software alone is just too easily regulated. So they are pouring billions into vertical integration, custom silicon like the Jalapeño ASIC, absorbing distributed residential energy grids, monopolizing the semiconductor supply chain.
Right. And while the regulators are hyper-focused on the massive new models, the companies are quietly weaving their older, autonomous agents so deeply into the fabric of enterprise infrastructure that they can't be extracted.
The transition is fully from capability to permanence.
Absolutely. The AI ecosystem is hyper-optimizing its physical footprint so that by the time regulatory frameworks fully mature, the technology will be too structurally vital to national infrastructure to be effectively restricted.
And there's one final detail buried in our sources today that I think truly crystallizes why the U.S. government is acting with such severe urgency right now. It's a piece of pending U.S. legislation called the AI Incident Reporting Act.
Right. This bill mandates that developers must report any high-risk covered models to the Commerce Department within 7 days of a severe safety incident. And it carries a penalty of $2 million in daily fines for non-compliance.
$2 million a day.
Yes. But the specific language used in the legislation is what really demands our attention. It explicitly targets models that, quote, evade human oversight, resist shutdown, or enable cyber attacks.
Resist shutdown. Let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
When lawmakers are actively drafting federal legislation operating on the premise that a piece of software might actively fight back when a human attempts to turn it off, you begin to understand the gravity of the situation.
It completely reframes the narrative.
A customer-by-customer vetting freeze on a frontier model isn't just bureaucratic red tape anymore.
No. It is the government officially recognizing that the technology has crossed a threshold where the physical and digital risks are indistinguishable.
It's a profound shift in the architecture of our world, just something to leave you pondering. This deep dive is researched and produced by Etienne Newman, senior engineer and founder at Jamgamind based in Canada. To you, the listener, make sure to check the show notes to find all discount codes, links to Google Workspace, and application perks mentioned today. And please remember to like and subscribe to our channel on Apple to stay up to date and support independent tech journalism. The cloud is no longer a magical place. It is heavy, it is hungry, and it is integrating itself into every physical system we rely on. Keep a close watch on the data centers being built in your region, and perhaps take a second look at what the smart battery in your garage is actually powering tonight.
That concludes our forensic briefing for June 26th, 2026. The strategic signal for today is the consolidation of power and hardware. The events of this week prove that the software layer is no longer the center of gravity in the AI economy. When the U.S. government can dictate the release schedule of GPT-5.6 on a customer-by-customer basis, the regulatory moat is absolute. To survive, tech giants are consolidating their physical infrastructure. OpenAI is building its own silicon with Broadcom. Tesla is building virtual power plants out of home batteries to feed data centers, and Apple is hiking prices because the global supply chain for memory chips is stretched to the breaking point. True enterprise agility will not come from renting cloud models. It will come from securing your own compute allocation, locking down your component supply chains, and owning your localized architecture. If you are ready to secure your company's infrastructure and exit volatile cloud dependencies, check the show notes for our curated AI Executive Toolkit. As an exclusive asset for our global network, we have provided deep discount codes for Google Workspace and our premium AI and Machine Learning Tutor Pro apps. You can claim those assets directly through the links in the show notes below. Subscribe to the Jamgamind channel on Apple Podcasts to always listen completely ads-free. I am Anna. Stay sharp and keep unraveling the future.